Do you think that Kyrie is worth all of this drama?
No, he's not. He's not worth it at all. A matter of fact, let me say this straight up and down. I think Kyrie Irving should retire.
And it hurts me sometimes when we have to sit up here to talk about stuff that divides the game. Now we got to answer for what this idiot has done.
I think the NBA dropped the ball.
In what way?
I think he should have been suspended. I think Adam should have suspended him.
There's not enough ball to go around. I believe this is subtraction by addition for Dallas.
Wow.
I believe it's a terrible move.
To me, man, when you're talking about Kyrie Irving, listen, Greeny, if you take Kyrie Irving's brain and put it in a bird right now, guess what that bird is going to do? It's going to fly backward.
Kyrie Irving the past 5 years has been on a basketball odyssey unlike any superstar in league history. As of course in 2019 was traded to the Celtics to face their franchise. 2 years later left them, went to Brooklyn, built up that super team. Then 2 years later ultimately was traded from Brooklyn to Dallas, where he now resides with Luka Doncic. Now with all that out of the way, looking at Kyrie Irving, in my personal view, the story of the 2024 playoffs. As looking at Kyrie just 3 years ago, he was viewed as a cancer, an annoyance, and one of the worst superstars in the NBA. And it wasn't because of his play on the court, because his play on the court was always consistent, always great. As in both Brooklyn and Boston, he was a 25 points per game guy on damn near 50-40-90 splits. All the criticism of Kyrie Irving, the hate for Kyrie Irving, came from his off-the-court stances and his kind of quirky attitude with the Brooklyn Nets. And when talking about the mainstream sports media, I've never seen such one-sided coverage of a player in all my life. And specifically looking at ESPN, there were 0 people at that network standing up for Kyrie in his darkest days. All the talking heads, even the lesser-known people, were bashing Kyrie 24/7 for about 6 months straight. And what made it even worse, you had former NBA players, a Charles Barkley, a Shaq, Kareem, calling this dude an idiot, a buffoon, and you had Kendrick Perkins saying Kyrie Irving was basically an idiot.
To me, man, when you're talking about Kyrie Irving, listen, Greeny, if you take Kyrie Irving's brain and put it in a bird right now, guess what that bird is going to do? It's going to fly backward.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot. All right, that's what we got to say about that.
Now, the irony of Kendrick Perkins calling someone else an idiot, that is pretty rich. Because Perk obviously is the biggest dunce at ESPN and the biggest idiot in sports media. Now, looking at the biggest fish at ESPN, you have Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. versus Kyrie, in his own words, it was personal. This dude has hate for Kyrie Irving, don't get it twisted. As back in the day, he was blaming Kyrie Irving for, quote, not showing up to work with the Brooklyn Nets. And you might ask, well, was Kyrie sitting out, not playing games? Was he load managing? Well, actually, Kyrie wasn't. He was barred from playing by the state of New York. Couldn't play in Barclays or MSG. But the odd thing was, Kyrie as a fan could attend those games, but as a player couldn't play. And visiting players from California, Texas, Florida, they could play in New York, but Kyrie Irving, who was a resident of New York, couldn't play at Barclays. Looking back at some of those rules, complete idiocy and just brain-dead rules. And speaking of rules, when it comes to myself, whether it be athletes in the NBA, NFL, people in my personal life, if you're not going to stand by someone in their darkest times, don't start boosting them up when everything's going great, going fine. It's easy to be the loudest voice when you're praising someone and everything's going smooth. It's the harder thing, the more difficult thing, to stand by someone when everyone's against them. And Stephen A. Smith was the tip of the spear of everyone attacking Kyrie Irving on a daily basis.
Do you think that Kyrie is worth all of this drama?
No, he's not. He's not worth it at all. A matter of fact, let me say this straight up and down. I think Kyrie Irving should retire.
Now, the silver lining for these guys trashing Kyrie for about 3 years straight is they tanked his trade value so bad it was at the gutter. That the Brooklyn Nets trade, all they got back was Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, and 2 picks. In large part due to Perkins and Stephen A. Smith, the Brooklyn Nets were robbed in the Kyrie-Dallas swap. And don't forget, ESPN's trade grade was a D for the Dallas Mavericks. That D trade grade by ESPN, 100% a personal vendetta to just slander Kyrie and the Mavericks. As nowadays, with hindsight being 2020, that Dallas trade is an A+. And if Dallas wins the championship, they beat Boston, the Kyrie Brooklyn trade, it'll go down in sports lore as one of the greatest heists ever pulled off by a professional sports team. Now, looking at Kyrie's play on the court, how he's performed in this year's playoffs is nothing short of spectacular. And the offensive brilliance, 25, 22 points per game, 54-90 splits, you'd expect that from Kyrie Irving. Now, what you don't expect is the defensive effort and intensity he's brought to nearly every game. I mean, look at the first round versus the Clippers. Opponents versus Kyrie shot 38.7%, the second best on the team. And so far versus Minnesota, his opponents are a piss poor 40.0%. And among every player in the postseason, Kyrie's opponent's field goal percentage is 42.1%, the seventh best of any player who qualifies. And that number, just behind Anthony Edwards and ahead of Jrue Holiday. And look, of course, I have no insight to Dallas' locker room, their day-to-day. I don't know Kyrie's actual leadership in the locker room. But watching his defensive effort when he has a reputation of being an offensive player, that has to inspire teammates to pick up their defensive game. And specifically Luka Doncic. This dude's defense, while playing on one leg, has been elevated to career best levels. Has Luka always had this in him? Of course. But it took Kyrie Irving himself being the leader, putting his defensive foot forward to inspire Luka to lock down that end. And speaking of defense, I gotta address this. Before the West Finals started, Anthony Edwards, some said he called out Kyrie Irving. He's either gonna lock him down, gonna guard him. And looking at Ant's comments, I really never saw that, never got that angle.
Any thoughts on playing the match?
It's gonna be fun, man. You know, my matchup gonna be Kyrie, so that's gonna be fun. We're gonna see what I can do personally.
That right there is probably the most milquetoast comments I've heard from Ant Edwards the entire postseason. He didn't say I'm gonna lock you down, Kyrie. All he said was Kyrie, that was his assignment, and he should do his best to guard him, which is the mindset of every player who ever played basketball. Now, Ant trying to guard Kyrie, well, he didn't call him out. One of the biggest mistakes of the series. As looking at Edwards in Game 1 and Game 2, this guy at the end of the games was just completely gassed and exhausted. And looking at his play versus Kyrie Irving, Game 1 guarded Kyrie for 7 minutes and 13 seconds. Game 2 down a little bit, 6 minutes 51 seconds. And then Game 3 cut in half, 3 minutes and 34 seconds. And it might be a coincidence, but Ant Edwards' best game of this series came in Game 3 when he wasn't guarding Kyrie Irving. And looking at Kyrie's overall stats when Edwards guards him, so far in this series, 17 points on above 60% shooting. Of course, nobody's going to stop Kyrie Irving totally, but Edwards versus Kyrie has been a total mismatch in this series. And the last thing I do want to address is the Kyrie-Luka duo. And of course, Luka Doncic, the best player on Dallas, their best passer, playmaker, and scorer. But here's the thing. Kyrie's playing that role of the reserved second option. As looking at his first half stats, 7.7 points per game, 53% shooting, with an offensive rating of 113.2. Now those numbers are pretty decent for a first half. Now what's highly impressive is Kyrie in the second halves. His scoring, 14.7 points per game, nearly double his first half scoring. Shooting percentage up nearly 12% compared to the first half. And offensive rating up by nearly 10 points. Kyrie in this postseason in second half scoring ranks 7th in the NBA. Again, compared to first half scoring, where he's not even top 40. That right there is the value of Kyrie Irving. He's a basketball savant, offensive machine who can turn on and off in an instant. And for Luka Doncic, he's the perfect wingman to have alongside you. As when Doncic gets tired, gets fatigued, needs someone to take over, Kyrie's right there and ready like he was in 2016 versus the Warriors. So, as always, thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.